morning, everyone. I am live this morning for Beside You. My name is Tamsin and I am a midwife. I work at Medway Hospital and I work on the postnatal ward at Medway. At the moment, I'm shielding at home, so you're in my dining room. Welcome. And today I'm going to be talking about the first 24 hours. So if you have any questions while I'm talking, please post them in the comments and I will try and answer them as I go along. There's lots to talk about this morning though, so I was making some notes last night and this morning and I realised that there is so much I could talk about. So I'm quite aware that I don't want to talk to you for hours and hours. So I might not be able to answer every single question as I go along. I will try my best to though. If I can't answer your question during this little slot, then I will answer afterwards, or one of my lovely colleagues will answer for me. Hello, lovely colleague. Just a quick note as well, it's really hot today, isn't it? I'm sure you've noticed. Just so you're aware, your baby doesn't need anything more than the milk that they're getting. So either your breast milk or if you're formula feeding the formula, they don't need water on top of that. Keep them in the shade and out of the sun as much as you possibly can. You don't need to cover their pram with anything that actually makes it much hotter inside there. So make sure that you don't do that, and just do what you can to try and stay cool. Do as little as possible would be my suggestion. If you're currently pregnant in this heat, bless you, really tough. Again, just do whatever you need to keep cool. So if that means sitting in a little paddling pool in the shade all day and somebody bringing you lots of drinks, then you go for it, because right now you need that. Anyway, to crack on, the first 24 hours after you have your baby, goodness. So what a roller coaster to get you to that point, but here you are now, sitting or laying with your baby in your arms. Excuse the hair on this doll. So your baby, wow, perhaps you're feeling absolutely euphoric and amazing. Perhaps you're feeling really overwhelmed and not quite sure what you're supposed to be doing now. Perhaps you're in a bit of pain and a bit of discomfort. Maybe you're recovering from surgery. This is pretty huge. And how on earth do you know what you're supposed to do? Well, hopefully some of what I say to you today will help. But you do know what you're doing. Your main job as a mum at this point is to hold your baby and love your baby. That's it. That's all you need to do. And you can do that. And when I say love your baby, some of us will feel that sudden rush of love that people talk about. Other people don't get that. Other people, it's more of a slow burn. And initially you kind of think, okay. And that can feel really difficult. But over time, you realise, you look at your child and you realise that actually you adore them. And you don't know when that happened. You don't know how that happened. But that kind of slow burn happened. At this point, in those first hours of your new baby's life, the most important thing that you can do is just hold your baby in skin to skin, so I wouldn't have this baby grow on. In fact, I'm going to strip off my doll because number one, it's a bit hot to be wearing a baby grow, and number two, really he needs to be skin to skin. Don't panic, I'm not going to take my dress off, quite safe. But possibly you're feeling like this isn't what you ordered at all. This is not what you were expecting. How can you have an expectation of something so completely overwhelming? Every emotion that you could possibly ever feel, all wrapped up in this little bundle. So your new baby is born and is placed skin to skin on your chest. About here. So this baby now, she's skin to skin on me, and I'm just going to lean back and I'm just going to hold her. I'm not going to do anything else. I'm not going to worry about anything else. And actually at this point, your mind doesn't really take over at this point. A lot of women do really well for their first feed because you don't really think about it. You just let it happen. So whilst you're laying there with your baby skin to skin, there are some magical things happening without you really having to do anything. The first thing that's going to happen is the adrenaline, or the stress, is going to completely reduce for baby, for you, and for the other people in the room. There's a calmness once baby is skin to skin. You're also going to be making sure that baby's temperature is regulated. At the point that baby is born, your chest is about 2 degrees warmer than the rest of your body, as a little kind of built-in incubator for your baby. And babies that are held skin to skin are 0.5 degree warmer. You can measure the difference in their temperature when they're held skin to skin, which is incredible. Just to say all these things that I'm talking about with skin to skin, if you're interested in it, then check out the video on YouTube by Niels Bergman. He is kind of the authority on skin to skin, and he talks about all the wonderful things that it does. But it's also making sure that babies' systems are working well. Heart, breathing, all those kind of things. Everything's working really well. The metabolism, so getting the energy from food, works really well when babies are held skin to skin. So all the systems just work really well. Another really important thing that's happening is they are getting good bacteria from your skin onto them. Now, you are, and I am, more bacterial cells than human cells. Ew, but true. And it's really important that you have a good balance of that bacteria. When your baby is born, they are relatively sterile. They're not sterile. They have got bacteria on them, and the process of birth actually transfers some of that bacteria and is very important. But as you hold them skin to skin, you're going to transfer even more of that bacteria. It's going to go onto their skin, help their skin to make that kind of change from being inside in liquid to being out in dry air. It's also, you'll notice that your baby will touch you and then put their hands to their mouth, so that bacteria is going down into their gut and it's starting off their immune system. So your immune system starts with that good bacteria inside your gut. So incredible things are happening just while you lean back, cuddle your baby, marvel at this amazing little human that you have grown and birthed, and just taking that time to get to know each other. You'll be counting fingers and toes, you'll be looking at their face. During that time, your baby's going to be doing some really important things as well. They're making the adjustments in their body that are needed to be outside in the air. And they're also thinking about having a feed. Your baby is a little mammal, same as all other little newborn mammals, with some certain differences. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more next time. But your baby is pre-programmed to feed, to find milk and to feed. They can do that without you having to intervene in any way. They're very clever little mammals. Our babies, however, when you look at other mammals, think of, I don't know, like a sheep. They're born and they stand up almost straight away, and they can follow their mother around and they can run after them. Your baby does not do that. Your baby is relatively helpless, can't cling on to you. They need you to hold them close. And if you're leaning back, gravity is going to help to do that. But in this position, even being relatively helpless, your baby is able to move, to wriggle, to move their head around, to sniff. So you'll notice they do this little kind of sniff where they are trying to find their milk. And they'll be moving and they'll be pushing themselves up and back, and you'll be amazed at how strong your tiny baby is. Full-term healthy babies all have these instincts to find milk and to feed. And really all you need to do is relax and enjoy your baby. Your baby is the same as we have been for thousands and thousands of years, and is born with that expectation that they're going to be placed skin to skin on you, and all these steps are going to happen without any interruption. What your baby is doing is a process. They go through certain behaviours. So they may start off quite alert, looking around like, oh, hello, this is new, interesting. They might start to be a bit wriggly. They might start doing things like chewing on their hand, licking their lips. Maybe then they'll have a sleep and be quite quiet and a bit calmer for a moment. And then they might wake up again, become more alert, and so on and so on. The process that they go through has to be done in order. If we interrupt that process at any point, your baby has to go back to the beginning. They can't start again where we interrupted it. They have to go back to the beginning and start that process again. So it takes them even longer to find that milk and to feed. So we try as much as possible not to interrupt that first skin to skin. We call it the golden hour. And we want to make sure that you have at least an hour of skin to skin with your baby that's not interrupted, so that your baby can do all those behaviours, so that they can pick up on all that good bacteria, all the wonderful things that are happening in skin to skin, get the best chance to do their thing. So, sorry. Where our babies are so dependent on us, there is a theory that we were only able to adapt to our big brains and walking upright because we're tribal. We have very big brains compared to most mammals, but because we walk upright, we have a really small pelvis. So there has to be a kind of juggling act between our babies being born at a point where they are robust enough to survive, but being able to pass through our small pelvis. That's why they're so less able than lots of other mammals. And we were able to make these adaptations because we lived in tribes. So the mother, who had this very dependent newborn baby, didn't need to do any kind of hunting or foraging for food. Her tribe would bring her what she needed so that she could just sit and focus on skin to skin with her baby. And that carried on for thousands of years. That's how things happened for a very long time. Very recently, we've changed our ideas of what mothering is in the last sort of 50, 70 years or so. And that's had a big impact on our expectations of what babies do and on our expectations of what we as mothers can do. And that can be very, very difficult when you learn about the science of what's going on for your baby, but you're also trying to cope in a modern world which tells you that you should be able to do everything. Within hours of your baby being born, you can spring back to how you were pre-pregnancy and everything will be all hearts and flowers and fabulous because that's what it feels on Instagram. The reality just isn't like that for most women. These first days can be really intense, really overwhelming, really tough. And I think it's really important that we just take that pressure off ourselves. We're often our own worst enemy of what we expect from ourselves. So just taking that pressure off and saying, do you know what? I don't need to do anything else right now other than hold my baby and love my baby. That's what's the most important thing at the moment. Everything else can wait. Visitors can wait. Entertaining people, cleaning the house, all those things can wait. Especially in that first 24 hours. Such a precious time that you can't get back very easily. So taking that time just to be with your baby is really powerful and can really help you to make that transition to motherhood. Perhaps you're feeling exhausted in that 24 hours, but for most women, the ability to sleep goes completely. You've kind of got a lot of adrenaline going on, you've got massive hormonal changes, and you need to stare at the baby. Staring at the baby is now a thing, and for the first 24 hours, you will stare at your baby pretty much constantly. At no point will you take your eyes off your baby. It is very important you stare at the baby. Stare at the baby, keep staring at the baby. Stare at the baby, did the baby move? Did the baby make a sound? Stare at the baby. Make sure you stare at the baby. So you're not going to sleep for this first 24 hours. That's really, really normal for you to feel that way. However, your baby will sleep. Most babies will have a pretty good feed that first time when you've been just laying back and letting your baby do their thing. They've found your breast, they've latched, they've fed, and then they sleep. Perhaps for 6 hours, perhaps sometimes even more. And there will come a point where you think, oh, my baby hasn't fed for a really long time. And I'm sure I've heard somewhere that babies feed a lot in the early days. My baby hasn't fed. There must be something wrong. No. Your baby knows exactly what they're doing. That long period of sleep is an amazing time that kind of nature gives you to allow baby and you to recover. You won't sleep though, don't worry. But your baby will sleep. That first feed that baby has had in their tiny, tiny tummy is all they really need to keep them going, because they're not born starving. They're born with lots of reserves from inside you. So they don't need to have loads and loads put into them in that first 24 hours. So they'll have that first feed that tends to go very well, and then they'll have that long sleep. And at some point, you'll start to think, maybe I should feed my baby. If you're holding baby in skin to skin, it's very likely that your baby will let you know that they're hungry, start showing you some early feeding cues. So those are moving their head, waving their arms and legs, maybe chewing on a fist, licking their lips, moving their mouth, anything like that. If you notice any of that behaviour, then you offer your baby a feed. If they're hungry, then they'll feed. If they're not hungry, then they won't feed. That's absolutely fine. So if you notice that behaviour, then you're going to think, right, I must feed my baby. And what we see at this point for lots of women is you sit upright on the bed, you hold your baby, let me move my camera slightly so you can see a little bit better. You hold your baby across your body like this with the head up in your elbow, because this is how you hold a baby to feed your baby, right? No. I would say very few women at this point are comfortable sitting upright. You've just given birth. Whether that was a vaginal birth or by caesarean, neither of those are going to make you want to sit upright. It is not comfortable. Go back to your leaning back. A couple of things happen when you lean back. You notice that gravity holds your baby in place. You can have one hand, if you're leaning back far enough, even two hands free. Gravity also helps your baby to get into a great position. What your baby needs from you is to have their head and body in a straight line. If you turn your head to the sides now and try and swallow, you'll find it's really tricky and quite uncomfortable. We don't want to be making our babies turn their heads to feed, because it's not comfortable for them to do that, and they're going to find it really, really difficult to latch on. The next thing that your baby needs from you is to have their chin touching the edge. Oh, there's cat fur on my boob. That's not good, is it? To have their chin touching the edge of your areola and the nipple pointing towards their nose. When we talk about nose to nipple, we don't mean nose to nipple like this, that baby then somehow makes a leap up here, or I don't really know what they would do from there, but it's not this, it is this. And this is key. There's a reason for this. Now I'm going to do a little thing with you, and I would love it if you could join in with me. You might feel a little bit silly, but stick with it and all becomes clear. I would like to thank the wonderful Deborah Robertson for this technique. I never know what to call it though, so we'll just crack on with it. What we're going to do is, you are now baby. This, your hand, is now breast. What I want you to do is hold your hand out in front of you and point your index finger up at the ceiling. And this is nipple. It's a rather long nipple, I'll give you that, but you get the idea. Now, if you put boob into baby's mouth and it goes straight in, what you'll find is that your finger stops right at the front of your mouth, and you can feel, if you suck on your finger there, I did say you'd feel a bit silly, but stick with it. When you suck on your finger, you will feel the hard palate at the front of your mouth. It's quite low, and your tongue squashes your finger against that hard palate. So this is what happens when a baby latches straight on. They go on and they squeeze that nipple between the tongue and the hard palate, and it causes toe curling, eye-watering, hideous pain. It is not an enjoyable experience in any way. They also don't get very good milk transfer. Now, we know there's milk in there. We talked about that last time, about how your body is getting ready from 16 weeks of pregnancy. Your body is able to make milk. It's just your pregnancy hormones that are going to reduce that milk production. So once your baby is born, and the key thing is your placenta is out, so those hormone changes mean that milk is going to start coming in more an abundant flow, but still little amounts for the first few days. So they're going to latch on, and they're going to do this, and they might get a little bit of milk, but they're not going to get very good milk transfer, because again, this is about hormones. This isn't baby latches onto the breast and sucks milk out of the breast. That's not how it works. Baby latches on, and when they latch deeply, they will suck, and your hormones, your oxytocin, is going to squeeze that milk into baby. So when they latch like this, it causes pain for you, and the baby doesn't get very good milk transfer. And this makes breastfeeding very, very challenging. And we're going to go back to you're the baby, this is the boob. And what I would like you to do now is have your thumb kind of running alongside your index finger. Do you see that? And imagine there's a bit of Velcro on your thumbnail and a bit of Velcro on your chin. Now this is the same as if you had Velcroed the edge of your areola to your baby's chin, like that. So you're going to stick the two together. You're now nose to nipple, and this is the nose to nipple that we talk about. Not this, but this. Now what I want you to do is to latch onto this breast, but keep that thumb attached to the chin. Remember, there's Velcro there, it doesn't come off. And what you'll find you have to do to achieve any kind of latch, nipples don't do this, by the way, that is cheating. What you have to do is tip your head back, like that, and then, if much further, into the back of your mouth. When you suck on your finger there, what you'll feel is that the tip of your finger is right at the back of your mouth in the soft palate. It's high, and there's no kind of hardness there at all. It's very, very soft, a little bit squishy. And that's what happens when the baby latches deeply. They go on, they latch deeply, and the nipple is protected in that high, soft palate at the back of the mouth. This causes no pain, apart from in those early days, just a momentary ooh, and then that goes very quickly. Not that this will cause, just a so they latch on. Their tongue movement here gets all the hormones going. That squeezes milk from the breast into your baby, which is a very different way of thinking about this than what we might expect. But really, that's what's going on for your baby. If you're in that laid back position with baby on top of you, what happens is they automatically have that head and body in a straight line. They can quite easily move themselves to have their chin at the edge of your areola and the nipple pointing at their nose. They are held as close can be. There is nothing in between you and baby. So they can get that deep latch themselves in this position very easily. If you're wanting to direct the feed a little bit more, if you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable about just leaving it all to your baby, and some of us do feel that, and you wanted to sit more upright, remember there are no rules about breastfeeding. What I'm talking about is what works for lots of people, but it might not work for you. We're all different. Find the position that you are most comfortable in, and then go from there. So from that position, how can you get baby to you with their head and body in a straight line, their chin touching the edge of the areola, and able to move their head to feed? And what you can do, perhaps you did want to sit upright. You then need to kind of work against gravity a bit to keep baby as close as possible. But you can do it. What you need to do, if you're holding your baby across you like this, you're going to use this arm, bring it round here, tuck their bottom into your body like they are some bagpipes. you're going to hold them really close. You're then going to use this hand to hold behind the head. And if you squeeze behind your ears that you find a bony bit, you can push really hard on that bony bit and you can barely feel it. So if you put your fingers there on your baby, you know that you're not going to cause them any discomfort by holding them. But importantly, they can still move their head back and forth. Remember this, where you have to tip your head back. If you're looking down forwards, you can't actually quite latch on. So it's important that baby can move their head back and forth. So you're going to hold them, and then you're directing it a little bit more, but they still need to do that work. They still need to open their mouth wide and latch on. And if you're holding them as close as possible, then they can do that in whatever position you want to hold them. And there's lots of different ones out there you can try. Some people call this clutch bag. Some people call it rugby ball. Rugby players don't call it rugby ball because you don't hold a rugby ball like this, apparently. But anyway, this one, you can have them more upright on you. We sometimes call this a koala hold, where they almost sit on your lap and then they're upright and coming from here. You can hold your baby over your shoulder if that's what's comfortable to you. Your baby's been upside down a while. They really don't mind, as long as you're holding them and they are in a straight line. You have 360-degree access to your breast. It doesn't matter how you hold your baby, as long as you keep those basic principles in mind. Head and body in a straight line, chin touching the edge of the areola, big wide open mouth and a deep latch. That's what you're aiming for. If you get that, everything else just falls into place. Now, in the first 24 hours, how many times am I expecting your wonderful new baby to feed? Only 3 or 4 times. So not very much at all. Your baby may feed more than that. If you're holding them skin to skin, certainly some babies that are held skin to skin do feed more than that. If you wrap your baby and put them down into the little kind of cot or Moses basket, then they may go longer periods between feeds. So trying to keep them skin to skin as much as possible is really going to help, but 3 or 4 feeds in the first 24 hours is completely normal. A big question we get is, how do I know that baby's getting any milk? There's no sign that anything is happening here. It's tiny amounts. You can't really hear baby swallow. It's very difficult to know what's going in. The key to that is look at your baby, and your baby will tell you if they're getting enough. We would expect your baby to do at least 2 wees in that first 24 hours and at least 1 black tarry poo. So this is my little knitted nappy here, and on day 1 or 2 we are here. This is the really black tar like sticky poo. Think treacle, perhaps Marmite, but a little bit darker than Marmite. That really sticky, very difficult to clean up poo. So that's what you're in for in the first couple of days. The poo then changes, as you can see from this lovely chart. We will come on to those colours of poo over the next sessions, but at the moment it's going to be this one, and we want at least 1 of these in 24 hours. Some babies will do lots of little black tarry poos, and some babies will do a big explosion of just 1, but we would want at least 1 of those in that first 24 hours. And that tells us that there's something going in. If there's nothing going in, then we're not going to get anything out. So it's as simple as that, really. That your baby wakes and prompts you to let you know that they are hungry, and that they feed, and that it's comfortable. If it feels uncomfortable, if it feels like something isn't right, then trust yourself and ask for help. When you're on the postnatal ward, staff are just a buzzer away. We can help you to feed your baby. That's what we're there to do. So please do ask for help if you're not sure. Obviously that first feed will be either on the midwife-led unit or the delivery suite, and the midwife that's helped you to birth your baby will be there to help you to feed your baby. But like I said, often that feed just sort of happens because everyone is sort of marvelling at the baby and not worrying so much about the feed. It's usually the next one that's more tricky. So just ask for help. If you go home within that first 24 hours, then you will be seen by your midwife the day after you go home. So just be aware of that, that the sooner you go home after you have your baby, there might be quite a long gap between you being seen in the hospital and you then being seen again at home. But that doesn't mean you're on your own. We are just a phone call away. So you can always phone the Call the Midwife number, the same number that you would have used during pregnancy. So this is for Medway. Just phone on the Call the Midwife number and they can point you in the right direction or give you any support that you might need over the phone. So you're not on your own when you're feeding your baby. I think that's about all I needed to talk about today. I feel like I've kind of waffled on quite a lot, and I'm hoping that I've said everything that I was planning to say. I had made a few notes, but I've sort of ignored them as usual. There haven't really been any comments for me to answer any questions, so either I was making complete sense or not, who knows. But if you have got any questions, or if you're watching this video later on in the coming weeks, maybe even months, who knows, please do put your questions in the comments and I'll be more than happy to have a little look through and see if I can answer them for you. In our next session, so next Friday, we're going to do another live at 10:30 and we're going to be talking about the next couple of days. So after that first 24 hours, which can be that quite intense, you're just going to be spending it skin to skin with your baby and getting to know your new baby. We're going to talk about kind of the next step. But for now, I think that's us done. So I hope you have a lovely day and you don't completely melt in the sunshine. And I will see you again next week. Bye bye.